How you say?
Good evening, everyone. Okay. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can, Toby.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We have started. Just let me thank you, Ademola, Ademolu, Eniola. Hello, everyone. Hello, Bridget. Welcome to the program for today. I just want to share the program to everyone as much as possible, so that people is aware that we have started. All right. So without wasting much of our time, I would like to welcome everyone to today's program. We're going to be discussing how nurses can migrate from UK to Canada. I don't know where that sound is coming from. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about migrating to British Columbia, Canada, specifically for nurses in the UK and nurses that have international exposure or are working outside of Nigeria. And I have with me special guests. But I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Biodun, and I'm the admin for NGO platform. I'm a professional nurse, and I work with the NHS in the UK. And with me today, I've got a special guest, uh, Mr. Babatunde Ayodele, and I'll do a brief introduction about Mr. Babatunde Ayodele. So, just a brief introduction. Babatunde is a professional nurse as well. He started his nursing career in Nigeria. Started with his education and School of Nursing with the School of Nursing Lagos State Igodo, which is now the College of Nursing Lagos State Igodo, where he did his 3 years general nursing program. And immediately after that, he went to UniMed in Ondo State, which is the Medical College Science in Ondo State, to do his degree, Bachelor degree of Science in Nursing. And after rigorous studies, he graduated with first class at UniMed, worked for a few months before relocating to the UK to practice nursing. While in the UK, he worked in the role of a professional nurse in the cardiology department for one of the NHS in the UK, where he worked for close to 18 months before relocating now to British Columbia in Canada. So Iwa is also a cardiology nurse in BC, Canada. So when I say BC, I mean British Columbia, Canada, just for reference purpose for everyone. So with all sense of gratitude and all the honor bestowed upon me, I would like every one of us to welcome humbly to the stage Mr. Babatunde Hayele. So we're going to be going into the question straight on because we don't have much time. We're just having 1 hour for this session. And I'll start by asking my question. First is I'll let Mr. Babatunde to introduce himself as well. I've done brief introduction, but I'll just allow him to just introduce himself briefly. So, hello, Babatunde. I think there's a network issue there. But while we're waiting for him to join back, to log in back, please, if you are joining in to this live session, I want you to share this program on your platform. I want you to share this program with your friends. I want you to share the link on all social media platforms so that we have a lot of people joining the live session and they'll be able to ask questions and it will be as interactive as much as possible. And while we're doing this, we'll just humbly wait for Babatunde to log back in. So please try as much as possible to share the link with your friends, with your colleagues, and then we all have an amazing session. And while we're also waiting for him to log back in, I want you all to just drop your name and your location. Where are you all joining in from? Which country are you joining in from? So drop it on the live comment section. Tell us where you are joining us from. So just tell us where you are joining in from, while you also share the link to this event on your social media pages. So tell us where are you joining in from if you're in the UK. So we have Bridget who is joining in from London. Welcome, welcome. Thank you. So please try and share the link with your friends, with your colleagues that might be interested in migrating to British Columbia, Canada, so that we have an interactive session as much as possible. So I have Babatunde back on the platform. So yes, I was saying you should do a brief introduction before the next issue came in. So can you introduce yourself briefly?
Okay, sorry everyone. My network problem was because I think MTN is giving me problem. I'm currently in Nigeria, so that's the problem. But that's where the problem is coming from. Anyways, thank you, Biodun, for the introduction. That was well detailed. My name is Ayodele Babatunde. I'm a registered nurse. I'm also a midwife, but I currently practice as a nurse in Canada. And I work in the cardiology department of one of the hospitals here in British Columbia.
Thank you very much, Babatunde, for that brief introduction. So we're going to be going straight into the question, and I'm going to be asking you questions basically, and then you respond so that everybody that are joining us today, they are going to participate and gain the information on how they are going to migrate to British Columbia, Canada. So the first question in my mind is, can you please tell me essentially what inspired you to choose British Columbia? Because in Canada, there are plenty provinces. There's Alberta, Ontario. There are other provinces, Nova Scotia. Why British Columbia specifically? Why did you choose to work and practice in British Columbia?
Okay, thank you, Biodun, for that question. So, for me, choosing British Columbia came with a lot of factors. And one of the factors I considered when I wanted to choose the province I'm going to relocate to was the fact that my brother stays and lives in, British Columbia as well. So you can say that I have family members in British Columbia. One other factor that also informed my decision about British Columbia was the fact that they have the best weather. For people that know me, I totally don't like extreme weather. When I mean extreme weather, I mean the cold parts. So I try as much as possible to be in an environment that is, not too cold when it comes to, winter and all of that stuff. So that's number 2 point. And definitely number 3 point, out of all the provinces I've, done my research on, British Columbia happens to be one of the provinces that pays nurses very well. So yeah, so those are the points and factors that preempted my decision to choose British Columbia.
Thank you very much for that response. And I'm sure a lot of people that are participating and joining us from different parts of the world are going to be looking at this point as one of their reasons for relocating to Canada. So moving on to the next question, can you actually walk us through the step-by-step process of how a nurse in the UK can migrate to Canada?
Yes, definitely. So it's not something that hard. It's just like similar to when I was living in Nigeria for the UK. But this time around, it's just from UK to Canada. So one of the most important thing that a nurse in UK needs to get is to ensure that they are registered with the nursing regulatory body in British Columbia, which is the British Columbia College of Nurses and Midwives. So when registering, there are some processes nurses have to go through, which entails doing your NCLEX, writing your IELTS, applying for your credentials to be evaluated, and and likes more that we'll still talk about in the course of this discussion. Um, so those are just the major steps that one needs to take. Ensuring you have English language proficiency, something to show for that. Ensuring that your credential evaluation as nurses has been evaluated by the evaluating body. There are numerous evaluating bodies that we can use. There's WES, there's ICAS, there's ICAS. There are lots of them now. There's CES as well. Evaluating your credentials, and of course, writing the NCLEX to pass, because it's one of the prerequisites for internationally educated nurses to work in British Columbia.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to buttress more on that question because I think this is very, very important for anybody that is interested in migrating to Canada. So, what is that? If you're going to give it a bullet point, so first is I heard you say they need to do an evaluation and they need to write NCLEX and they need to apply to the board of nursing in Canada and then immigration processes before they then finally relocate. Can you just give us a bullet point? Just emphasize on those bullet key points again.
Okay, so Biodu, I'll take you back a little bit. So before now, nurses in other, let me just put it as internationally educated to Canada, I mean British Columbia, I know for that, of course, go through this body, we call them NNAS. So over time, Canada became short nurses, especially BC. So they had to develop ways, they had to bridge the gap in internationally educated all over the countries to come and fill the gap. They developed introducing other evaluating bodies like MCs. And then what they did was that they reduced the
Okay, I think there's a network error with our guests.
shot. Hello, Biodun, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
So where did you stop? Where did I stop
Yeah,
before you?
you're trying to explain how nurses are short in Canada.
So the previous pathway they were using was that they were using NNAS to bring in to process nurses, recruitment and all of that. But NNAS takes about 6 months to process, nurses' credentials. So they were short of nurses, and then they had to introduce other, evaluating body like WES, like ICAS, CES to start evaluating, nurses' credentials. And by way of doing this, they reduce the processing time. Take, for instance, WES will evaluate your documents within 7 to 14 days. It doesn't have to take that 6 months again, right? Also, one of the things they did was that they put like a mediator in between them and applicants. And this mediator is known as Inspire Global Assessment. Their former name is NCAS. They call them Nursing Credential Assessment, body like that. But now they had to change their name to Inspire Global Assessment Company. So those ones are like mediators between BCCNM and the applicant. So what those ones do basically is that they will receive your document from WES. I told you go and evaluate your document with WES, CES, ICAS, and the rest. So NCAS is the body that receives your document, your evaluated document, and they now look at your level of education. Okay, WES has told us that this person has bachelor's degree in Nigeria. They will now compare it to Canadian education system to see where it fits in their own education system. So once they see that, is the person has had a level of education that is on the same par with those in Canada, then they will advise BCCNM. BCCNM is just like NMCN. So they will now advise them that, okay, we've reviewed Abiodun's credentials and we can attest that, Abiodun is fit to practice in BC. And then that is it.
Thank you for that response. Okay, so the next question is, what are the essential documents the UK nurse needs to prepare before starting the migration process? What is the required document? I want you to talk about the documents needed.
Okay, so the first document is usually IELTS. So for registration to become a nurse in Canada, you need the IELTS academic this time around. So that is number one document a nurse in the UK uses. But Bioda, I'll tell you something. Recently, they've started exempting nurses that study that practice in the UK, New Zealand, Australia, and the US from this IELTS thing. All they will just request is for the nurse to give them, they provide them with a form to give their employer in the UK, and they just filled in that form that they've been practicing in English language, and that would prevent them from writing IELTS, which is better now. So that is the IELTS part. The second thing the nurse needs is to get their documents evaluated. If you remember the last question you asked, I spoke about WES, which is like a evaluating body that evaluates your educational credentials, irrespective of the country you had your nursing education. So you have to get your documents evaluated with WES. You need your high ELTS, of course. And the last thing that you definitely need to do is to have your NCLEX. But I can also tell you with regards to the NCLEX, you don't have to provide it upfront. BCCNM these days also gives you provisional license to practice in BC, Canada, pending the time that you pass your NCLEX examination with some conditions attached.
Lovely. So just to recall, you
Yeah,
need your IELTS, but if you're a nurse in the UK, you don't need the IELTS.
it can be waived.
You
Yeah.
also, yeah, it's been waived. You also need your credential evaluation document to show that you are actually a professional nurse. So they're going to evaluate your document. So that's needed. And then you also need NCLEX.
Yes.
Apart from those three documents, is there any other document that is needed for these migration purposes?
Definitely, there's none because it's a part which I've just gone through. Um, the only thing I can talk about, they are just tick 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 they will send you a form just to declare that you are not a criminal, like a criminal record check. But you don't have to go and do police certificates or do any DBS. It's just like a form for you to attest by yourself that I have not committed any crime, I'm not a criminal. You just have to tick yes, no, yes, no. And once you do that, you're good to go.
Thank you. Thank you. So the next question is, how does the role and daily responsibility of a nurse in British Columbia different from nursing in the UK? So technically, can you tell us what is it like practicing nursing in the UK and practicing nursing in British Columbia? Because you have worked in the UK and you have worked in Canada. What are those differences in the roles, really?
Okay, so yeah, so I haven't practiced in the UK and currently practicing in Canada. I would like to personalize this question, Biodun, because if you ask someone else, their experience and their roles might be different. But for me, I'll talk about this. So while I was in the UK, my role as a nurse in the UK was, I would say, is more dependent. Like it's more like we depend on each other to practice. And I'll give you an example. Um, when I was in the UK, I worked in the cardiology department. And in that department, there's a level at which I have to stop where the band six, which are the charge nurses, have to take over. In the world where I worked in the UK, it is the band six responsibility to discharge patients, right? There are some other things that a band five nurses just have to stop at that point, and then the band six have to do them. But coming to Canada, in fact, it has been really different. I do the admission, I do the discharges. In UK, I don't have to carry my stethoscope around to assess, patients. It's only the responsibility of the doctor to be doing the listening to the heart and all of that. But here in Canada, I have to do the assessment. The doctors rely on my assessment. So in the morning, I have to do head to toe assessment to get the information, to get the data, which I wasn't doing when I was in the UK, of course. So if you see me on the ward in Canada, I'm always with my stethoscope moving about. If I had to get a stethoscope when I got to Canada, I didn't
Yeah.
have a stethoscope before. I just, have to take the one I use in UK, the word, and then if I have to, I listen. But now it's like it's part of my dressing from daily from every day. So that is one of the differences I've seen. The nursing roles here, they expect you to like do everything, know everything in depth. Like you have to know the lab values, you have to act on it immediately. You can order your lab investigation, you have to be the one to do your assessment, you need to get things going and all of that. You don't have to wait for the doctors here and all of that. So yeah, it's quite different from where I'm coming from, because in the UK there's a particular point where I get to where I can't proceed further. I have to, escalate it to my senior colleagues to take over from there. But here, it's like once they give you your patient, it is your business. Even when you go to we call the charge nurse in Canada, we call them PCC, patient care coordinator. Even when you go to them to just let them know, it's more like you are just informing them so they are also aware. But the responsibility of handling the situation still lies on you.
Thank you for that. Do you feel like you essentially do more in Canada compared to UK? Because you've mentioned that in Canada you wear stethoscope, you know much about lab investigations, you carry out more assessment, admission, and discharges. Does that mean that as a nurse in the UK, you do less job, while in Canada you do more job? So it's more demanding in Canada compared to UK. Is that what you're trying to clarify?
No, it's not actually, and I'll tell you the reason why it's not like that. Which is one of the points I feel like we're still going to discuss later. But I'll chip in this point now. The nurse ratio patient in Canada is just, for me in my ward, I don't get more than 3 patients. When I was in the UK, I get up to like 7, 8. So if I get 3 patients in Canada, once I resume, I do my assessment. It's very easy for me because I just get to the patient bedside. I do the head to toe assessment. I have all my information. It makes me independent. I know what I want to do for that patient for that day. But where I have 7 patients, 8 patients, it's very difficult for me to, gather their information that very early and still combine, giving medications and all of that. So what I basically practiced when I was in the UK is just get to work. How are you? How are you? You're fine. How was your night? And I, get to go with doing my vitals and medications. But it's different in Canada in the sense I have just three patients. It gives me the avenue to know all these patients from, so like I have more information on them. It allows me to carry out like a holistic care for this patient. So that's what I'm talking about. It's not like it's demanding because I definitely have less patients to care for. Do you get me, Biodo? Compared to the UK where I have seven patients and it's very, very, you know, tasking to know all the patients' information like that.
All right, thank you. The next question is, how much support did you get from the employer when you started your job in Canada?
Wow. So I got a lot of support. I won't lie, to be honest. Even right before I left the UK for Canada, they've been supporting me and all of that. So first off, when I landed in Canada, they sorted out my, accommodation for the first month. Um, they helped me with the funds. They didn't get a place for me. I got my place. All they did was to sort out the amount I paid for that rent. So that's number one thing they did. Secondly, in terms of support, they enrolled me in other, trainings pertaining to my specialty, which is cardiology. Because to be honest, the cardiology I practice in the UK wasn't meant to be different from the one I'm going to be practicing in Canada. But to be honest with you, it's quite different. So, and when there's a gap, it has to be filled. So they enrolled me in some, basic trainings, things to cover up for that gap, which was, I see it like a support as well, just to ensure that I'm able to practice effectively on the ward, right? Thirdly, I would say that financially as well, relocation packages, they gave me a lot of money when I relocated. They gave me relocation bonus, I'll put it like that. So that those money helped me to be able to, buy this, buy that when I, go to Canada. They also provided me some, resources as well, which allowed me to know the environment I have just gotten into. They also introduced me to fellow Nigerians that did the same, pathway just like myself, just to be able to guide me through how they did theirs and how they were able to, settle in very well. So those supports were those, that I got when I relocated to Canada. And they were really helpful. They really helped me in settling down. And yeah,
From your explanation, it shows that there's actually a lot of support
yeah,
financially.
yes.
And I'm sure a lot of people that are joining this program, they would like to know much about the financial support. Can you be more details in terms of the salary and also the financial bonuses and the financial support that you get? What's the salary difference compared to UK? And what's the financial bonuses that comes with your relocation package?
Okay, so first off, let me start with the relocation package. So they gave me about 5,000 Canada to support my relocation, which is meant to cover my flight, um, including, of course, my baggages, transporting my baggages. Out of that 5,000 as well was what they used to pay my house rent for the first month. Um, Also, they covered all my, high ELTS, West money. They refunded them back to me.
Your immigration processes
Yeah,
expenses.
that fee they returned. It was part of that 5,000. So anything that has to do with me leaving, the UK to come work for them that I've incurred on my own, they refunded them back to me. So it was up to 5,000 Canadian dollars to claim. Also, there's a signing up bonus that they're currently doing now is $15,000, signing up bonus that you get for accepting work for my health authorities, of course. So they gave us that $15,000 bonus as well. In terms of salary, this is the major part because it's part of the reasons why I actually relocated. Um, so for the salary, I would like to mention that in UK they don't consider your years of experience. So whether you have 10 years of experience from Nigeria and you're relocated to the UK, you still start from band 5. They don't care how many years you've used outside the UK. But for BC Canada, they consider your years of experience. Um, if you have worked 10 years before since you got qualified as a nurse, it's going to be considered when placing you on the level. And whatever level you are dictates the amount that you get. So take for instance, you've had like maybe 8 years of nursing experience before you joined the Canadian healthcare system. Those 8 years have not gone. They will be considered, they'll put you on level 8 rather than starting you on level 1. So
I
if
don't
level
understand
one,
you as a band 5 in
yes, if
UK.
level one,
Because no matter your level in nursing, in the
exactly,
UK, you start as band 5.
yes. So rather than starting at level 1 where you get maybe like 42 Canadian dollars, as a level 8,
Per
you end up
hour.
as a level 8, you end up getting like 50 something Canadian dollars per hour, which is like a huge
Because your
difference.
years of experience has
Yeah,
been put into
yeah,
consideration.
exactly. Which
Okay.
is about like maybe extra $10 to $15 every hour you work, like on top of it. Yes.
Yeah.
And to be honest, their pay is definitely different from the UK. And this is evident by, let's even talk in pounds now. Maybe if you talk in pounds, it's going to make sense. While I was in the UK, my, you know, hourly rate was, I think, was about 15.8 or so, or thereabout, 15 point something pounds per hour. So in Canada now, if I say, okay, let's roughly convert it to pounds, just so people can have an idea, it's like getting times 2 and more per
Hmm.
hour. Do you
Hmm.
understand?
I do. I
Yeah.
do. I see the calculation
Our
you're doing.
hourly rate is doubled up in Canada compared to the UK, and even more depending on your years of experience.
Lovely. That difference is quite attractive for somebody
Yeah.
that is based in the UK that are looking for better opportunity or better money. So let's just carry on. The next question is, what is the work-life balance like, and what is the job satisfaction like for nurses in British Columbia, Canada? Because it's much easier to understand that you earn times two of what you're earning in the UK. But what is that job satisfaction level like?
Yeah, so for me, when you talk about work-life balance, I'd say it's better than what I experienced in the UK. And that's how it's dependent on how they did our roster back in the UK. So in the UK, I remember I work 37.5 hours per week, right? I think that's still what they operate. Still 37.5 hours per week. And I remember my roster then would be like, you come day, you can do night, the third one, and then you rest for like 2 days, and then you back for day, night, like that. So, but over here, you just have to we do by 2 weekly. Every 2 weeks, we get our salary in Canada. So, every 2 weeks, you are expected to do uh, 75 hours in 2 weeks. So the way they do my roster in Canada is like I do um, day, night, and then I go off for like 4 to 5 days. So it's basically like working 4 days in a week, and then you go off for 4 to 5 days. And in between that 4 to 5 days, it allows me time. Sometimes there was a time I even planned a mini trip to, another province just to go. I mean, I have 5 days off. Do you understand me? It allowed me time to also, see to myself, take care of myself, go to places, go on outings, visit family members, allowed me time to also, get to do something for myself. Compared to the UK that, when I do 3 shifts, I just have 2 days and then I'm back again. Sometimes they even scatter. You may have day shift off, day you come back again, they do night here. It's so scattered when I was in the UK that I barely have time for myself. Before I know it, I'm already back to work. Compared to Canada, where I just know that in a week, I just have to do 4 shifts and then I go off for 4 to 5 days. And I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say. So that 4 to 5 days allows you time to also attend to personal things that you have to sort out as well. So work-life balance for me has been so perfect here because I've got enough time to to stay at home and watch movies. I've got enough time to visit my brother and go out on outings. I've got enough time to, do other activities, for my family and myself.
Lovely. Thank you for that response. Clearly, you are showing that there is a better roster system in Canada compared to the UK, and that actually can affect your work-life balance because the more time you have to yourself, the better you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
valid
because
question. What's
yeah,
yeah? Carry on, carry on.
the UK, I remember if I'm off, I can't plan a trip of 4 days for my off. That's be on my leave.
Hmm.
That would be on my leave. So yeah, so that's it. Let's just carry on because I'm getting a low battery. So let's run through.
Okay. The next question is, what is the biggest benefit of working as a nurse in Canada compared to UK?
There's a lot, Abiodun, and I'm going to list them for you. So first off, I mentioned one the other time. We get our salary every 2 weeks. We don't have to wait a full 1 month before I get my salary. When I was in the UK, I get my salary every month. Before the next month is finished, I have to now start waiting for 1 month cycle to complete. No. Over here in Canada, BC, I get my salary every 2 weeks. Before I finish spending the 2 weeks, another one has entered. I don't even know when they pay. I've lost track because I'm always having money in my account to spend. Before I know, they'll say it's payday today. I'll be like, it's payday already. I mean, when did we collect one salary last? So it's every 2 weeks they pay us, and that allowed us, because they pay us every 2 weeks. That allows us to have like 13th month salary. Yeah. So that's number one. Then I mentioned the other time the nurse-patient ratio. Here in BC, we have one of the strongest nurses union, BCNU. They've been doing a very good job. They are very strict when it comes to the nurse-patient ratio. I mentioned the other time that on my ward, I don't have more than 3 patients. When I go to work, it's either they give me 2 patients. Let's say we are short-staffed that day, I'll get 3. Once it's more than 3, it can't even be more than 3. I've never handled 3 patients since I got to my current place of work. So the nurse patient ratio is fantastic. Um, then there's something they do here that is really, really, I won't say annoying, but it's awkward back in the UK. I remember in the UK when you pick up, extra shift that is meant to be overtime, they get to tell you that you get your normal hourly rate. At a point, with the NHS trust I was working with back then, they said they'll be giving us 40% extra. At a point, they reduced it to 20% extra. This is meant to be your overtime. You are not meant to be at work, but you decide to come and help them out, and then you just get like 20% extra. That is not it over here in Canada. If you work any extra time, which is overtime here, you get double. So I will explain that. If you've been take for instance, let's say your hourly rate here in Canada is $50 per hour. If you pick up overtime, you will get $100 per hour for every hour you work. It is times 2. Now, to make it even more interesting, let's say you pick up on a bank holiday, that is times 3.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is one. Then I also talk about the years of experience, that they consider your years of experience, irrespective of how many years you've practiced or any country you've practiced before. When you come to Canada, those years are put into consideration in placing you into the proper level for correct payment. Also, my employer also gives us transport allowance. I travel by train to work every day. My house is just beside the train station, and each time I travel, they give us, transport allowance. They give me about it's not $50, and then I get to have $50 with half, and then that is something as well. I mentioned the signing up bonus the other time. I mentioned the relocation allowance, and then we also have extended benefits. Over here, I can decide to go for dental care. I can decide to go for massage. I can sustain injury at work and go for physiotherapy treatment. All those are free, covered by the healthcare, which I didn't have opportunity of getting when I was in the UK. So those are the benefits.
Thank you for that. What's the annual leave entitlement?
So annual leave entitlement is based on seniority over here. So they do something we call seniority. How long you've joined them determines how many hours you have in a year. For someone like me that just joined, I am entitled to 150 hours yearly. So, but as you progress, let's say I've worked for them 5 years, they'll add some hours to, let's say they had about another 7 days to eat. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? As you work, how long you work with them determines your, how many weeks they give you for leave. But for starting point is 150 hours annually.
Are you allowed to do extra shift on your days off?
Definitely. Once you are having day off, once you pick extra shift, you get double payment. If it's on bank day, you get three payments.
Okay. Um, for IELTS, is it general or academics? But I think you already mentioned that nurses in the UK are exempted from doing IELTS.
Yeah. Yeah, so they are
Um,
exempted from doing IELTS. You just have to fill the form and then you get going.
okay. I think somebody is just trying to ask general questions regarding the migration process. Um, I'm just gonna let's just complete the question and then we'll answer those ones. So, what is the downside of living in Canada? Because it seems so juicy and interesting, but what is the downside? It cannot just be all rosy living in Canada, the benefit and all. What is the downside of working and living in Canada?
Well, I would say every country has their downside, and of course, when I was in the UK, there are lots of downside, and I won't say that there are no downsides. Working in Canada for sure. Um, where I live is British Columbia, is the most expensive province in Canada. Um, it's just like you say you are living in London compared to living in Paris in Edmonds. So it's very expensive. But what I always tell people is that if somewhere is expensive and I'm being compensated with my salary for living in that same location, then that's good, right? What I don't want is living in an expensive area and I'm collecting less. If I'm living in an expensive area and collecting high money, then that's going to help me, isn't it? So that is one of the downsides of living here. Secondly, I wouldn't really call this a downside. When I was in the UK, they don't. When I go to restaurants, I don't get to pay tips and all of that. But it's like it's a custom here in Canada, BC. I'm sure all over Canada as well. When you go to restaurant and someone has to provide service like serving you water, giving you serviette and all of that stuff, it is expected that you tip them when you are leaving, when you're going to pay. You tip them, maybe give them $5 to appreciate them for the services they've provided. Um, Let me see if I also have other things. Then tax on food. I remember when I was in the UK, I usually, because there's this what they call it, um, Tesco close to my house. I usually shop there, and when I go there, I pick up. Let's say, for instance, I pick up bread. They write maybe £2.50 on the bread. When I get to the payment counter, I pay £2.50. It's quite different in Canada. If they write $5 on the bread, know that you are not paying $5 when you get to the counter. They're still going to add some tax to it. You might end up paying about $6 or 6.50 dollars when you get to the counter. Apart from that, I would just say those are the really, really turn up for me. Uh, but apart from those I've mentioned, um, I believe when you are earning well, all those downside you can get your way around them actually, and that is getting good money. Downside won't be a problem like that. You'll be able to afford all those things that I mentioned.
Okay. What's the common challenges that in terms of the immigration process for nurses in the UK? What's the challenges there?
Basically, is the English part, which they've taken out now. Another major challenge is trying to get your transcript from Nigeria. You know how slow things are in Nigeria and other people from other countries. I don't know how things are in their country in terms of getting their transcripts. But I know for sure when I was doing my own processing, I had to be calling someone, please help me, sir, help me this. I need my transcript, it's very urgent. And, NMCM problem came in. So all those Nigerian factors really, really, prevented me from getting the documents that I required on time. So that's one of the major challenge. English will have been a challenge, but they waived it at the later on. So I didn't have any problem with the English language. Um, what other challenge did I have? Let me see. maybe preparing and writing NCLEX could be a challenge to other people, because I remember during my time it was quite stressful and I didn't want to relocate without passing the NCLEX. Even though they offered me provisional license to come and practice pending the time I passed the NCLEX, I was still very reluctant because I wanted to just have everything at once before I relocate. So preparing took me about some months and it was really stressful and strenuous coming back from work to prepare and all of that. So that could also be one of the challenges I faced during my own processing as well. Can you hear me, Biodun?
Oh, sorry, my mic is on mute.
But I
So
couldn't hear
what
you.
advice would you give? Yeah. What advice would you give a UK nurse considering moving to Canada?
Okay, first off, I would say if you are not in the UK trying to move to Canada, first off is to make up your mind. There must be a reason, there must be a factor that you have to consider. You don't just say, oh, they are paying well and I want to go. Let there be a motive behind your move. If it's payment as well, it could be payment. It could be like maybe they are not paying you well in the UK, which is the case most of the time. All you just have to do is make up your mind. I'm going to Canada. I want to earn more. I want to earn good. I want to earn big. I want to be able to afford, my standard of living, my lifestyle. First thing you have to do is just to make up your mind. Because when you start the process, if your mind is not made up, you may get to the middle and just be like, I'm not doing it again. So first thing is I'm determined to leave. Irrespective of whatever happens, I am going to leave. So first thing is to make up your mind and you need to be quick about the process. I realize that the more you waste time on the process, the more you get distracted by other things happening in the UK. I remember during my time when I started the process, I was so focused on living. So I was doing it, doing it, doing it. And I remember a friend of mine that was doing the same thing, but she got carried away at a point. And then it was when I now told the I'm leaving tomorrow. That was when she, oh my God, oh my God. And then she had to quickly run back and be like, where did I stop? So a lot of things are happening in the UK that can get you carried away from your target. So you need to make up your mind. You need to stay focused and need to do more research on the province you are going to. If it's BC, trust me, you love it here. And do more research on where you are going to work and yeah, consider your individual situation as well. If it's going to pay, maybe you have families with kids, consider everything, and I'm sure you'll be able to make a very good informed decision.
I keep muting myself. Sorry about that. So final question for me is, can you share any resources or any contact or organization that can help nurses through this process?
Yes, I would say Health Match BC. So there's this recruitment. I won't call them. I don't want to call them recruitment agency, but they help more with recruitment basically. And I'm sure they've been to UK. Currently, they are doing. I won't call it tour, but I know they've been coming to the UK to do lots of seminars. They've gone to Scotland. They've been to England, and I know a friend of mine that attended one of their seminars in London. So they're coming because they're also trying to outsource for nurses to bring to BC. So they've been doing seminars, giving nurses information. So if you check out their handle on IG, I think it's Health Match BC on IG. They can give you all the information you have. You can ask them. Other resources could be visiting BCCNM website as well. That is the nursing regulator here in BC, British Columbia College of Nurses and Midwives. That is another resource because they also have a lot of information on how nurses can relocate, not just nurses, internationally educated nurses, how they can relocate to BC to start working as well. And of course, we have the Google and all of that to also fall back on.
Okay, so thank you. You said Health Match BC
Yes.
is one of the resources and organization that can help with migration process, and then BCCNM, which is the British Columbia College of Nursing and Midwifery as well. Yeah, so those are valuable resources, and then YouTube,
Yes.
Google,
Yeah,
the
Google and all.
videos on all those things. So yeah, those are the questions from my hand, but I'm just going to open the question to the audience. Now, let's just answer the question from audience for the next 5 minutes uh before we close this meeting. So this person is asking, did you go through the PR process? Did you
Okay,
go through the
so
PR process, permanent residency process?
yes, I did. So when I left Nigeria for the UK, I went as a worker. So I was on I was on skilled worker visa. So when I was leaving the UK for Canada, I didn't want that kind of status in immigration status in Canada. So I wanted something that can make me a permanent resident in Canada. So while I was doing my licensing registration with British Columbia College of Nurses and Midwives, I was also doing my express entry registration with the Canadian government. So I was doing both alongside. So when I got job to come and work in BC, Canada, I remember at that time I just submitted my PR application. So I left UK to Canada on a work visa. So when I got to Canada, my PR process, of course, is in place, is in progress. So I think I spent about 4 months and then I got my PR approved, and then yeah. So what I would advise people to do is do the licensing and practicing registration with BCCNM, and then also look into express entry. For express entry, you need IELTS General, but for you to register with BCCNM to practice as a nurse, there are two differences. You can be a PR in Canada and not be a nurse. Do you understand? But if you want to be a nurse at the same time, you need to register with BCCNM. If you want to be a permanent resident, you need to go through the express entry pathway that I did. So, what is the band score? For express entry, you need IELTS General, and the minimum score you need to enter the pool is 6.0 for all the modules. Um, Yeah, so the immigration process is that you need to get your first thing you need to do is you get your high ELTS general, make sure you score as high as possible, and then you make sure that you get your WES. So you can see that for both getting PR and for getting registration with BCCNM, you need your WES. So get your WES for the PR, you need WES immigration. For the let me talk one after the other. For the PR, you need IELTS General, minimum score of 6.0 in all the band score, and you need your WES to enter the pool. So two things you need for PR, IELTS and WES, and then you enter the pool. For registration with nursing BCCNM, you just need IELTS academic, but you don't have to write it if your employer can give you English language reference. You just have to fill it that you practice in English language in the UK, and then they send it over to BCCNM over there, and then that is it. You follow that pathway.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm here. So the next question is what I'm putting on the screen. As a fresh nursing graduate, can you outline the step I will follow to get a great job like yours in Canada?
The steps I should follow. So, in fresh graduate nursing, which country is this person? Is it Nigeria or the UK? Because the country you have will determine how I'm going to advise. If you are a fresh graduate in nursing, for nursing in Nigeria, it's a different requirement. But if you are a fresh graduate of nursing in the UK, like I said, you need your English language proficiency, you need your WES, and you need your NCLEX. You need to pass your NCLEX, and that is it. But if you're in Nigeria, I'm not sure the topic of today is for Nigerian nurses, or Biodun, is it?
No.
Yeah, so if you're in the UK, fresh graduate nurse in the UK, just need your English language proficiency, and of course your WES to evaluate your nursing education, and make sure you pass your NCLEX.
So what's the tax rate compared to UK?
Yeah, so I get this often in Canada. Yeah, they do two. They split it into two. There's this provincial tax, and then there's this they call it federal tax. So the combination of both is going to equal, I think, 20.5%. It's more like in the UK, but it is being rated according to how much you earn, just like the UK as well. There's a level which you earn in the UK that your tax rate will no longer be 20%, to be 40%. It's just same thing as here, but for the tax part, it's similar. Let me put it like that.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I've answered that question. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the next question is, how long does this process take in general?
So if we remove all these Niger factor or the process of getting your transcript, the process of getting, your individual country, this process shouldn't take you more than, I'd say, 3 months. But by the time you factor in Niger factor, before they send this, before they receive this, before they receive that, it should take you maximum of 6 months if you are really focused. Three
So
to
the
six
next
months.
question is, can I 8 to 6 months? Yeah, good. Can I contact you for more clarification?
Yeah, if you have any question, just get across to Biodun. I'm sure he's going to be able to reach me. And yeah.
Okay, so for anybody that needs clarification, you want them to direct the question to me, then I'll direct the question to you.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if it's possible, Biodun, after this live session, maybe if you upload this, we should just write, those step-by-step that I mentioned, or a link, to drop a link for people, which can guide them on how to apply, like step one, what I'm going to do first, when I'm going to do second, when I'm going to do third, till they get to the last phase. Because there's a link that can actually guide everyone. You don't even need anybody to put you through. Once you click on that link, it's going to list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Once you can do those
What's
7,
the link? What's the link?
I'll send it to you so that you can put under this YouTube that you've just done. So that'll be able
All
to
right.
guide.
All right.
So even without me or without Biodun, once you follow number 1, once you do it, number 2, once you do it, up till you get to number 7, you don't have a problem.
Okay. I think people are going to benefit from that link, because the
Yes.
challenge is, I know people that are interested in this process, but they want somebody that will hold their hands and be taking them on those steps one by one. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot afford that. Nobody's going to sit there, hold your hand, and be taking you through that process one by one. But there'll be guidance online, YouTube videos like this, website, Google, BCCNME website as well, Health Match BC. They're also going to guide you. So I'll try as much as possible to get the link to those websites and put it in this video. So, any final word before we end the session?
Well, not really, but if you are thinking about, is it going to be worth it, leaving the UK for Canada? Trust me, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos when I wanted to relocate from the UK to Canada. And what I've come to realization is that no matter how we think about it, everything still comes to how much you earn, how well are you valued as a nurse. Not until now, when I was in the UK, I felt like when I left Nigeria for the UK, I felt like I've, gotten to my, final destination. But when I started seeing that, okay, there are some people in other parts of country that are earning more than me and they have the same certificates just like myself, then, it triggered me to start saying, I have to get more as well. So, that should be like, a motivating factor for everyone. Don't stop until you get to that, that point where you can afford a good lifestyle, a good standard of living for yourself and for your family members. So with that in mind, stay focused.
Thank you very much, Babatunde. It's been an amazing session. Thank you for accepting my invite to do this program. A lot of nurses in the UK have been on my neck. We need information on migration in Canada. We need information. Now you have it, and I wish everybody all the best. Thank you once again, Babatunde. We also wish you all the best in your journey as a Canadian nurse. We'll talk behind the scene. And to everyone that joined, we appreciate. Thank you so much for the questions and for your attention. We wish everyone all the best. Bye-bye.